like to call this meeting of the Costa Mesa Sanitary District to order at 5:30. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, led by yours truly. Place your hand over your heart and join me in saluting the greatest country in the world. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Michael.
If you'd all bow and pray with me. Heavenly Father, watch over and guide tonight's proceedings. Give the board and staff a steady and consistent thought process. Be with those that are in distress and illness. In your name, amen.
Amen. Roll call, please.
Vice President Michael Schaefer.
Present.
Director Robert Wooten.
Present.
Director Arlene Schaefer. Here. Director Arthur Perry.
Here.
And President James Scaramage.
Present.
Thank you.
We don't have any ceremonial matters this evening. Were there any late communications?
Yes, Mr. President. About approximately 2:15 this afternoon, we did receive an email from Mr. Mosier. A couple of comments on the agenda which you had situated tonight.
Okay. Duly noted. At this time, it's an opportunity for any of the public who wishes to address the board, come forward. I do have a card here from Jim Mosier wanting to speak on items 11 and 20, which are later in the... Yeah. So we'll wait till those items come up and we'll bring Mr. Mosier. Anyone else in the public, from the public, that would like to address the board? Seeing none, we'll move along. A consent calendar. Are there any items on the consent calendar that anyone would like to have pulled for discussion?
Second.
Okay. Discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. General Manager.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Item number 9 is considerations for sponsoring the Costa Mesa Community Foundation for Conscious in the Parks. This is the third time we brought this to the board for discussion, so I'm going to seek some direction from the board tonight. If you want to support Conscious in the Park, there's different levels of sponsorships for you to consider tonight. We also have a member from the foundation here to speak. You might want to have them come up and speak to you, but we're just seeking direction from the board if you want to sponsor Conscious in the Park or not.
Okay. Would that representative care to address the board?
I'm here. I really did.
Can you please come up?
Sure.
Are you here just to answer any questions?
I'm here to answer any questions.
Okay. Board, do we have questions for the representative?
Mary, we have, how many sponsors do you have now?
Well, it varies, but we have probably between 12 and 15.
And I asked you earlier, but does any of the board remember, Mesa is very good about figuring out how to get the best bang for their buck. And they go back corporately to many of these events. And I think Mesa's been a consistent supporter of
Talking about Mesa Water, right?
Mesa Water. And so, they go through and they analyze how many people are there and what the cost was and how much it costs. And I think, although we don't do that as an agency, I think it's a substantial opportunity for us to engage the public. And Mary, did you say you would allow us to, generally the booths are in the back, and people do engage them at the breaks and at the beginning. And I think the foundation would allow us to circulate through the audience and hand out things like our sewer lateral assistance program. last year's attendance, it was huge. Do you have any sense for whether we're gonna be able to maintain that?
Oh, without a doubt. It's such a huge, community tradition that, we haven't seen it go below really 2,000 people in the last 3 years for any week, so, and it's swelling to maybe as many as 3 or 3,500.
Yeah, I was impressed when I went there, just a few times I could get there, so I'll be in support of it.
Elaine?
I think it's a great opportunity for us to have a community outreach, and at the same time also for educating the public. So I'm completely in favor of it.
I have a question. Art, Mary, when you talked about how many sponsors you had, how many are at 1,000 or better?
I would say probably 3/4 of them. We have only a few smaller sponsors. We had, with the last year Segerstrom and South Coast Plaza and Segerstrom Centers for the Arts being our title sponsor, and then Mesa Water, City of Costa Mesa Convention and Visitor Bureau all being above 1,000. So I don't have the list right at the top of my head, but
My next question is, how many sponsors would be, if we came in as a sponsorship for $1,000, for example, would we be sharing that with some other of the sponsors at that same time? Is that correct?
sharing that level.
No,
Or
sharing that
sharing
night, like if we get 2 nights for the copper sponsor,
Right.
would we be sharing any of those nights with another group?
Oh, yes. We have whoever wants to be there. We do have sponsors who do participate at the ability to have a booth, but they choose not to, some of them. For instance, OC Marketplace does not have a booth, and they're a $1,500 sponsor. But they are at that level up on our stage banners, so it's quite obvious, and they're, in all of the logos, all of our materials. So any of the sponsors who choose to have a booth are there, and we accommodate that. So we have had in the neighborhood of probably 6 to 9 booths in addition to the Costa Mesa Foundation booth.
Yeah, that answered my question.
Okay.
Do we supply our own booth, or
If you have one with your own logo and everything, that's better. It gives you more visibility to the crowd, but if you don't have one, we will provide one.
thank you.
And it brings us to the question of if we're all in agreement that we want to support this, at what level do we want to support it?
My question for Colin, if I could. I know the general discussion has been, does it meet the gift of public funds requirements and guidelines? Are you guys comfortable with the fact that if we donate, that we're gonna be okay as far as getting public funds?
It just depends on whether you can articulate a public purpose for it. For what I'm hearing, it sounds like you have.
I think we have, but I just wanna make sure you guys are on board. And the advice we've been getting has been good, and I'm very comfortable with the parameters that have been set and meeting those parameters, so I think we're okay. I just wanted to make sure.
I do too. I think the board's okay.
We could start out at maybe 1,500 and see what kind of experience that is. If we're happy with it, then next year we can go up to 2,500.
I would be.
I mean, just a thought. I don't know.
I was thinking more like 1,000 when we start, but on whatever the majority of the board agrees on.
Sorry to be the stick in the mud, but I was thinking the 2,500 because I like the idea. Sandy and I have traditionally gone to a couple of these every year, except for the ones that fall on Lions Club meeting nights. And from the very beginning, this has become a bigger and bigger community event. I mean, from the beginning, it was not sparsely attended, but it was light. And this year, that park was absolutely packed every night of these. If we're gonna get our message out, for me, the opportunity to do it over the whole series appeals to me. And I like what staff had said about being able to split it between the two funds, so we don't have to take it all out of one. Wasn't it?
Right, yeah.
staff can support this. Well, then I make a motion that we sponsor it to $2,500 level.
I'll second.
Discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries.
Just a comment, if I could. We just have to make sure our staff has all the things necessary for those 5 concerts, that if we're gonna be doing one a night, or we're gonna do, explaining a number of the things we do, that will be your staff.
And as a personal note, if I'm gonna be there, I'm more than willing to help staff at the booth if they want, if they want, they may not want us there, but I'd be glad to help whatever I can.
That's it. All right, for the year we have,
Never mind.
Thank you
Thank you,
so
Mary.
much.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Mary.
We will treat you very well. You'll love being there.
Good
Thank
job.
you. Thank you.
You're on tape.
Okay, let's move along. Item 10, permit technician position.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Right before you is a revised version of the permit technician job classification position. And it's really just a minor revision, and that is allowing this position, as per direction from the board, to make those environmental findings in CEQA. So the position will make those findings and then coordinate that with our district engineer, Rob Hammer, to make sure that the findings is correct. And so that's before you tonight, is to approve that new classification.
And Rob's good with that, and
Yes.
Rob, that's
Yes,
within your
thank you.
capabilities, I'm sure.
Yes, I have actually been replying to all the CEQA questions that have been posed to the district for the past 30-some years. And they have been in the form of responses to EIRs, even contributing to EIRs, and looking at the environmental impacts of other projects on the district, and making sure our projects are either exempt or they're brought to your attention. So we have been successfully complying with CEQA requirements for a number of years, so there shouldn't be any problem with having anyone else assist in the process, because we've done it for so long that we understand it very well.
Very good. Art?
I had a question, Rob. Just for curiosity, over the last couple of years, how many of these CEQA things have we had to establish?
If you recall, one recent one was the discussion regarding the sewer in Harbor Boulevard for the development at the Fairview State Hospital property, where that was beyond the level of our master plan. So we gave them a response they could live with and that the city lived with. You don't really see them come by, but we probably get half dozen a year. Occasionally we get an EIR. Most of the time we get, the developer needs a will serve letter to make his package complete for the city. So we have to look at the effects of that proposed project on the sewer system. So that allows that developer to comply with CEQA. So it's been busier of late, because developers now are proposing extremely high density projects rather than what's already approved through the city. So we have been busy, but it's not a problem.
That answers my question. Thank you.
Generally speaking, we haven't had a capacity problem, or it depends on what the project is.
That's correct. We do not have capacity problems. We are very diligent in evaluating all the proposed projects and comparing their potential flows versus our master plan and what our capacity is, and we like our capacity and we don't like to give it away. So we are very strict in that respect.
Arlene?
I had a question. You probably read part of the staff report here. And some of us went to this liaison meeting with the city, and they said they'd be willing to cross-train us for this. How do you feel feel about that? You feel it's needed, or how do you feel?
I think that somebody at the permit tech level will probably not know much about CEQA. So training would be essential. However, the city has different requirements under CEQA, and they may not necessarily understand what we see all the time. We're more of a reacting agency. They're a lot of times a lead agency. So if they understood where we are in the realm of responses rather than being a lead agency, that would probably be very good to get training from them.
It's mainly the projects that have potential impact on the environment, and then you have to rule whether they need an EIR or a negative declaration.
Well, there's two ways of, there's a number of ways that CEQA has to be satisfied. It has to be satisfied from the developer standpoint, which means that a developer, he has to comply with CEQA, which means going and checking the impacts of his development, which would be the impacts of his development on our sewer system. We have our own projects, so we have to do the same thing for our projects, make sure our projects don't have any adverse impacts on the environment. There are broad exemptions for maintenance and rehabilitation of existing utilities or infrastructure, and 99% of our projects fall under those exemptions. So those are just two areas that we apply CEQA in, but we've really, the EIR that is right here is actually a joint EIR between OCSD and CMSD for the abandonment project, and we are actually somewhat of a lead agency here. This is a little bit beyond what we've done in the past. I actually wrote sections that are in here, and we provided maps and charts and all. So it is a broad, there's broad definitions and checking and complying that we do, but we've never had any problem doing it.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the permit technician job description as presented.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
Just one addition to that, we want to make sure that we get the proper training. So we already have a plan.
You had that in.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, we'll move along to item 11, California Environmental Quality Act guidelines.
Thank you, Mr. President. Now that the permit technician is determined as the staff responsible for those environmental reviews, the next step is now adopting those guidelines which are before you tonight.
Discussion.
Move for approval.
I know that.
I'm sorry.
I thought we,
I forgot.
Jim, would you like to come forward?
Yeah, thank you, President Chairman and members of the board. My name is Jim Mosier. You have before you here in this item have a 2-page resolution, and then you have a 32-page working document. And as in the context of what Rob just explained to you, this is the procedures that would be followed for finding compliance of district-initiated projects. It has nothing whatsoever to do with making comments and signing off on a project that would come to the district from a developer or a different city or agency. And I really had a small comment about this. The 2-page resolution part is just going to be filed away, and the actual working document, I would think, should be totally self-contained and self-consistent. And I can't claim I've read every line of it. I did look at the first couple of pages, and it refers over and over to the state guidelines, which are explained in the resolution, but they're never explained in the document itself. And as the resolution explains, the state guidelines it's referring to are found in something called the California Code of Regulations, Title 14, Section 15,000. And before you adopt this, I would just suggest that in the definitions you explain to whoever's reading this what those guidelines are that they are supposed following and what the references are to. So I think in the definitions, it should have a definition of what state guidelines are, so that the person reading it will be able to find them. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that, that's not a problem for us on the other hand.
Would you add that to the resolution?
You'll need a resolution to add to the guidelines, just to the guidelines,
Yeah, okay.
and we'll make those guidelines available on the website.
Can we approve that tonight with the stipulation that you're gonna do that?
Oh, yeah, this is just define, what Mr. Mojo just defined the guidelines, so it's just,
Yeah,
easier reading.
just a clarification.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I'm gonna continue my motion to accept the guidelines as presented with the addition.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Item 12, revised standby policy. Scott?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to actually turn this over to Ann Sanchez, Community Services Manager.
Due to some recent events, the district's reviewed this current standby policy, and we've made some recommendations for revision. So currently, the maintenance supervisor responds after CNR drains responds to an emergency, Monday through Thursday, and he responds on a on-call basis. And the standby schedule does not compensate him for those days, except other than if he goes out to the call-out. So if he responds physically to the site, then he's compensated overtime as well as after hours. The revision that we're recommending due to the recent events is that we'd like to equalize the amount of work among the field staff and allow all of the field staff an opportunity to participate on the weeknight standby schedule and create a Monday through Monday standby schedule versus only having on-call staff available Friday through Sunday. With that, due to FLSA standards, we would require restriction on the staff that are on the standby schedule, and as a result of those restrictions, we're required to compensate them for that time, which currently we compensate employees on the standby schedule at $50 per day. And staff is recommending that we continue the $50 per day compensation for the revised standby schedule.
Any questions?
This is what I've been hoping for a number of years, because I keep asking that question. But I think it's a great move, it's a good policy.
Rob?
Is this, in the policy you allowed 1 hour of travel time. Is that a change from the existing policy?
No, that is the existing policy as it stands. The only changes that were made were extending the standby schedule from Monday to Monday.
Is our staff within 1 hour, what do staff have to go through? Would it be our maintenance supervisor's approval that staff could do this? I mean, a brand new staff member could perform the functions in my mind, but would be required, in some of the skills.
The standby schedule is developed by the maintenance supervisor, so it would be at his discretion how he would schedule the employees.
I have a question. Do we have 4 staff members in the field?
Yes, including the supervisor, yes.
So that would be once a month, basically, roughly.
I don't know, once a month, yeah.
Would be every 4 weeks.
Yeah,
Once every 1 week a month. Each guy would.
I actually, just as a side, the guy that's on standby for Mesa Water this week happens to be my brother. And, he volunteered to me. I think this mirrors what Mesa Water does, as far as the payment schedule, the daily thing. I think we're consistent with what Mesa Water does, so, this is.
Maybe we better change it.
That was gonna be my next question, if this is a fair amount, and if it,
And I imagine Mesa Water gets far more calls than Costa Mesa Sanitary District. I mean, those guys are out all the time. They have to do emergency turn-offs and turn-ons, and, you know, service turn-on and turn-offs, so. But I think this is a very fair.
Director
conversation.
Does the standby person have a district vehicle? Steve does have a district vehicle.
They have access to a district vehicle, so they would report to the yard and then roll from the yard.
Does, the maintenance supervisor take his vehicle home?
No.
His vehicle at the yard also.
We do that for protecting the property of the vehicle, you know, any break-ins or something like that, so we keep it in the yard.
Well, Orange County Sand District, they do, have the standby person in
So
a
it's-
vehicle.
So it's Mesa Water,
So
Mesa
that-
Water,
so-
the standby guy
So that
takes
they
his
can
truck.
get to the quickly.
It's up to you, as a risk for us, we kept it, because most of our, employees are within, you know, 15, 20 miles from the district, in fact, one employee lives in the district, just take that long to get to the vehicle. My concern was just someone breaking into the vehicle, trying to steal something in the vehicle, we have, equipment in the vehicle, that's just my concern.
Yeah, but I mean, every agency, would
Sure, yeah, whether they don't.
they have that same risk,
Right.
and they choose to take it.
Right, they do.
My main concern, I think it's a very well written policy. My main concern is, it took us 1.5 hours to respond to, the recent major sanitary sewer overflow. If there's any way to cut that down,
Well, wasn't that because they didn't tell us about it in Newport Beach?
Yeah.
Was
once
notified?
from the
They
time,
called the wrong place.
We had alarm
No.
come.
it was about 3 to 4 hours before the spill was mitigated, but the last 1.5 hours, our person, you know, we were on board. If we'd have been notified, it would have still taken 1.5 hours. If we'd have been notified through the SCADA system. And some of our stations don't have very large wells. We've always managed to get there.
I don't think, we don't, Robert, correct, we don't take over an hour to get to a call out, especially like with SCADA. We're in there within the hour. It doesn't take us longer than an hour.
Okay.
Director Schaefer?
Yeah, if there isn't any further discussion, I would like to move for revised standby policy to be approved as
I'll second.
presented.
I have just one other question.
Is there a second to that?
No.
I second it.
Okay, my question is, C and our drains still need to be first contact, even though our person gets called, are they gonna be there before the 1 hour?
Yes,
Okay, so that-
CNR drains
that
also,
takes care of
they
Bob's
have to be
concern.
open in 1 hour too.
Well,
Correct.
if we have SCADA, so each staff member is gonna have something that SCADA will call them also.
Correct.
Straight away.
Or the smart covers.
Or the smart covers will call them straight away. So they may,
So that's what I'm saying, I think they'll probably get there before, if he's an hour away, but if he's 15 minutes away, he'll probably get there first.
okay.
I think that will cover Ernie's, the president.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Item 13, rewarding ideas program.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have two ideas, rewarding ideas presenting to the board tonight. The first one is from Anna Sanchez for recommendation $850 for saving $4,250 on a coffee machine. Coffee machines, you might recall this was presented to the board last month, and it did not pass on a 2-2 vote, but it was, the board directed staff to bring this back to the board tonight, which is before you tonight. The difference in this report I did, on page 2 of your staff report, I did break down how those cost savings were estimated, so hopefully that was a little easier to understand. I think the last meeting was a little complicated, how we calculated the $850 for the recommended reward. And then the second recommended reward is for Diana Wick for her for $264 for enhancing revenues by increasing the penalty fees for issuing late sewer permits. I think in my staff report, the district council and I still have to hash out a few more details, but again, it was her suggestion, it was a good suggestion, and we believe we can slightly increase our revenues if we go this route and penalize those corners that do not follow our procedures.
Move
Second.
Discussion.
Yes, and I personally can't vote for the amount of $850, nothing personal. I think that's probably part of your job as the administrative assistant. And I was gonna ask a question about Dinah's too. How did you come up with the figure of 264?
It's in the.
I know, I saw that, but I mean, did you base it on what?
Based on past years, we've had 11 plumbers come in that, did not follow procedures, and we should have charged them a late penalty. So based on past practice, that's how I came with that number.
I just personally can't. I mean, it's just me, I've been talking to the board members, so 850 seems a little out of line.
Well, I don't agree with the $850. I agree with the way it was calculated. I don't agree with paying, even though I've made the motion, $850 because, but the way the policy is written apparently allows all employees to take, the idea program. I'm changing the program, and I believe that it is changed in a subsequent memo. And I would like to ask, I checked with Orange County Sand District Mayor and sent it to language, but I believe managers should have something in their job description that says, that they're responsible for efficiency and effectiveness programs, which is not. I've read Anna's job description. She has many duties, she wears many hats, but she is a manager, and I don't believe managers should ultimately be involved in the program. I also read the management analyst job description, and I have some concerns there. That is written into their job description. And I don't know whether, I guess they would be able to participate in the future in programs. I have less than that.
Director Schaefer.
I think that the awards kind of, is a great idea, except I could see one price, everybody, I don't understand this formula.
We have a minor and a major.
Yeah. And you've done it all different. I can't see the way it's done to understand why some get so much and some don't.
Director Mike.
Well, for every company I've ever worked for, it's done very similar to this. If someone saves the district $5, should they get the same reward as someone who saves them $6 million? I don't believe so. I think this formula that's been developed is very fair. Whether we agree or not about the 850, I think we have to show some consistency. Every reward that's come before us to this point, we've used this formula, and that person has gotten that reward based on the formula. For us to arbitrarily now say, we think that one's too high, we're not gonna give her that much, I think we're gonna get into some gray area there with not following what we've followed previously. The fact that we're gonna maybe change this under the next item will solve future issues with this, but I think as a board, we need to be consistent in following this rewards program like we have from the very beginning. That's why I'm in favor of doing these and then moving on and talking about alternatives.
I administered the CRIDE program and the IDEA program at Orange County Sand District, and we did it on a similar basis. It was a percentage of the savings. And, there were hundreds of thousands of dollars, ideas came through, and I believe we gave them 10%. Now, we reported that, the very largest ones to the board. We prayed the young woman around, so that the directors would be very happy.
We did the same thing when I did the rewards program at State Farm when I worked, but I was in it, was very similar to this. It was, percentage based on their idea, and it was effective.
Problem I got is the time that we did base it over a year, perhaps. Is that correct? You base it over a year's savings.
Yes.
Then why didn't you go 2 years or 6 months? That was my problem.
Because we usually base it on annual savings.
I know this is the first time I've heard of annual savings. The other ones have been because of ideas that popped up, not based on hour, time.
Not necessarily. Like I can recall when we
I have one comment on, or question on, the calculation of the savings, since everything's based upon a percent of the savings. On page 6 of the report, where it talks about the potential situation of the new, approach, generating $14,000, and the suggested situation, we would reduce that cost to $10,000. In the suggested situation, there's a reference to a yard plotter printer that's moving an old headquarter copier to the yard, and there's a zero cost assigned to that. If there is a copier that is going to be at the yard that's going to be functioning and being used, there probably should be some cost associated with that that would diminish the savings.
Depreciation basis or?
No, just the cost of actually using the copier, paper that may be used, supplies that may be used, whatever the cost is of using that copier.
Oh, I see what you mean. Well, once again, let's discuss that in the next segment. Any further questions or discussion? We did have a motion and a second. Now, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. And abstain. I voted yes, so.
Three carries.
Yeah. Now, we go to rewarding ideas program revision. Recommendation that the board considers revising the program. So, all those things we were talking about before kind of apply here, right?
You want me to?
Yeah.
Yes, under the direction of the board of revising, this plan to exclude managers, well, if you do that and identify our managers on the staff report, that's basically half our staff. I don't think you were trying to, the intent is to exclude half our staff to be rewarded. So what I suggest to do is that we exclude three positions, including myself, including the general manager, and that would be the administrative services manager and the finance manager position, because those are the two positions that are monitoring and implementing the program, and so to maintain the integrity of the program,
That makes
and
sense.
keep them out of the whole situation. So that's my recommendation.
That was the intent of my recommendation, that we bring the policy back. Just because somebody has management analyst isn't a manager, it just happens to be a term that we apply to the position. So I had no intention of going beyond, I think Scott is right on.
I think Mark's comment needs to be addressed as well. If we put something, if we're using something in another location, and there should be some assigned value to that or expense, in my opinion.
I'll make the motion that we accept the staff recommendation that Scott presented with the three excluded from.
I'll second it. Just a quick comment. Going through the revisions as you've done them, I really appreciate what you did. Going back to what Director Root said last month, I think you did a nice job of getting this more defined, and not that we want to discourage you three from coming up with ideas, but I still would like to know if the three of you come up with an idea that's going to say, I think we need to know about that. We may not be giving you any money for it, but still want to know about it. So. That's all.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Item 14. No, that was it. Item 15, ad hoc committee for CMSD's 70th anniversary. Let me start this one out. I was approached by a couple of the board members that expressed an interest in being on that ad hoc committee. And so, Art and Arlene, and as far as I'm concerned, they'd be fine to serve on that, if that's okay with the other board members.
I think we should discuss it. I would be happy to partner with you, but I'm not sure what your thoughts are.
sense to me. We're all gonna be feeding the ideas and
Sure.
things, but,
Yeah, we're all going.
we just, with the history and the experience with you two, I have no problem with that at all. It's more work for you and less for me.
I mean, we have Art, experienced Pullman,
She takes pride in telling people how it's.
What we would probably have to have is a timetable, so we know when we have to be, with the staff, make this a timetable.
Yes.
We should, you know what I mean? Because we need to know.
We'll have,
I think we should meet with staff.
Yeah.
we'll have Nolani, I'll contact you and work on scheduling when you're available, and we'll set some meetings.
Are you going to establish a certain staff
That-
person to be the food?
Yeah, so we maybe a couple of
What I was thinking, when are we gonna have a, it's gonna play out over a certain amount of time, when is the time gonna be? When are we gonna officially?
Having just been involved in an anniversary celebration that turned out not very good.
I mean, do we need to discuss that as a board, if we wanna have a date in mind?
Well, do we,
It's all year.
what's the
Maybe is it all
incorporation?
year, or is it a?
Sure.
Do we have an
Every year.
incorporation date, the exact date?
We have a resolution, yeah, it's in the files, I don't know exactly.
That's what I was referring to, have the staff help us with the date, so that we, we
I
have a
think you
plan.
started, it's just my opinion is that it really starts with that incorporation date, because that's the
That's what I was
it's like
getting,
your-
that's what
it's
I
like
was
your,
getting.
it's like your birthday, I guess,
Now, that's what I was getting at, like, to find out that officially.
Well, I'd like to make a motion that we limit it, limit the expenditures.
Or the procedures for the expense.
Trust us.
I think we should, basically, we can have Art.
The most frugal guy on the board is gonna be on the committee, I mean, what do
Just write
you
a
want?
press release.
Do we need to take a formal, action?
No, I don't, I think,
Okay, well, I'm gonna appoint them as a. Okay, moving along to engineers report.
Thank you, Mr. President and board members. Item 16 is project status report. It is printed in a larger format as requested, thanks to Nolani. And happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Does the board have any questions of Rob?
Well, there was one that didn't have the title and name, so we need to work with the line and figure out what that one was.
Today is Nolani's birthday, so we need to be nice.
Well, I think that's probably why when she didn't have time to finish this one. Whatever it is, I don't know what it
It's
is.
tough turning 24, isn't it?
I thought she was 20.
Anyway, I like the
Thank
format,
you.
it'd be nice, Nolani, if it could be on one page.
I believe that we tried that before. and it
That's
was
what I
all the
requested, to be
text.
bigger print so we could read it.
So this is it all, it's too small. That's what we
So
can
it
do.
carries over to 2 pages or more.
Okay.
For me, it's much better, this way I can read it, it's after you,
There is a way to expand the print on your iPad if you really wanna do it, you
I don't
can
have an
squeeze it
iPad.
out.
You're not talking about, because I get the printed material, and I can look at it, now I can read it.
Okay.
Good
Thank
finds.
you.
Good finds.
Okay. No other questions for Rob? Let's move along. There's no action. What?
Thank you. No, I don't have any questions or comments.
Treasurer's report?
Oh, excuse me,
No,
Mr.
we
President.
have
we
item
have-
17 and number 17 is your project.
Oh,
Mr. President, do we wanna take a 5-minute break so they can get these sons out of here?
It's up to you.
yeah, let's take a 5-minute break and allow them to
Get out of the way. Just one of those falls that you get, or you see.
Where's it?
How did it turn out? How did we look?
Looks awesome.
Right, it's on a
It's
Friday.
tomorrow.
It's been